The U.S. Department of Labor published their monthly jobs and unemployment numbers today. The economy added 175,000 new jobs in May, which beat expectations. However, the unemployment rate increased from 7.5% to 7.6%. Additionally, the department revised down the numbers for April. So not as many jobs were added as originally reported last month. Well, with me to discuss this and the meaning of all of it and all of this information is Prime Interest host and producer Perry Ann Boring and Bob English. Hi there, guys.
Hi, great to be with you.
Thank you. There seems to be a lot of conflicting information with the number of jobs. Let's start with you, Bob.
Sure.
This number of jobs that they added to the economy, which is increasing, but the unemployment rate is decreasing. Explain that to me.
Well, there are two surveys that are actually done. The household survey, where the BLS goes from house to house and interviews people, and they have a questionnaire that's answered. And then there's a payrolls survey, and that's sent to corporations. So the 7.6% number that we're seeing is actually the household survey, and the 175,000 jobs is actually the corporate survey.
Okay. All right. So how does the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, how do they compile these numbers? Because they seem to not make sense to me. Perry Ann, I'll give that to you.
Right. So the number we're talking about here is U3, and that includes people who do not have a job but have been looking in the past 4 weeks. And we brought with us a graph of some alternative measures of the jobs rate. And we also have U6, which is another measure that the BLS uses. And this includes discouraged workers, which are those who have stopped looking for work altogether. And then we have marginally attached workers are also part of U6. And that's people who would like to work, but who have quit looking more recently than the 4 weeks.
Yeah, and what I'd like to add to that is the 7.6% number, although it ticked up a little bit, doesn't seem realistic. It probably doesn't jive with reality. And because, like Perry Ann said, that's only people who have been looking for work in the last 4 weeks. And there are a lot of people who have been out of a job for a lot longer. So we look at the U6 statistic, and that's closer to 13.5%. Mm-hmm. And then if you actually measure the way jobs were counted back in 1994, before certain changes were made by the Clinton administration, in that graph we saw actual unemployment is actually closer to about 23%, which is on par with what you would expect maybe in Spain or Europe.
Oh, ouch, ouch. All right. So, Bob, I want to take this back to you now. Mm-hmm. The types of jobs that are being added last month, what types of industries are we seeing?
Well, unfortunately, these aren't necessarily high-paying, high-quality jobs. I think 175,000, 122,000 were in low-income jobs, and we're talking leisure, entertainment, temp jobs, hospitality, retail. So unfortunately, despite all the hype, we're not seeing the quality jobs added that we have in previous recoveries.
Okay. Perry Ann, I'll take this to you now. What about the methodology used itself? We know that these numbers can be revised substantially from month to month. So in May, the number was 175,000, but right now I think it's being revised to 115 or 120,000 next month. How much stock can we put in these numbers, and what do they mean?
Right. I think we will see revisions in the numbers. We don't know if they're going to go up or down. Last month they went down. The month before that they were revised back down. I think what's important here is that the government is not necessarily giving us a reliable source of what jobs actually look like. I mean, we brought our own statistics of some other jobs. It looks like a more realistic measure. So it's always important to look at other factors if you really want to get the true measure of employment.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Bob, do you have anything to add on to that? Or?
Well, it's a very volatile number, and it's great for people who are day trading or who want to, enter the market casinos on a day-to-day basis, but in a couple days this is going to be largely forgotten, and you have to look at the long-term trends here, and the long-term trends are still not boding well for the jobs market.
What is the long-term trend?
Well, unemployment is actually coming down if you look at the U3 and U6 statistics that we were looking at, but it's actually pretty flat if you count by the way it was measured in 1994, and that's the shadow stats statistic that we showed in that graph earlier. So things are improving a bit, but maybe not as much as everybody would like to believe.
Okay. Well, I understand it, Perry, and let me take this to you. Canada's job numbers came out today as well, and it's expected between 10 and 15,000 new jobs were added there, but the expectations were completely surpassed, as I understand it. Now, Canada has added 95,000 new jobs to their economy, which is outstanding. New jobs this May. Why is Canada's economy taking off and ours isn't?
Well, let's look at the breakdown of where those jobs came from. Constructions were almost half of the gains there. They rose by 72,000. And construction probably has to do with housing starts. And, you know, the Canadian economy is very much based on the U.S. economy because we're such close trade partners.
Especially energy.
Right, and we also have what I would consider, you know, a Fed-filled housing spur of growth in the United States, and I think we're starting to see that bleed into Canada. So I think what's really important is also what do these numbers in the U.S. mean for the United States? Well, once unemployment gets to 6.5%, the Federal Reserve will let off the pedal on the quantitative easing program. So it's obvious that Canada's economy is very much based on the U.S. economy. So when we start seeing tapering here, it will probably affect Canada's economy as well.
Bob, I want to get your take on the Canadian economy. Why are they doing so well and ours is in the toilet?
Well, I think, like Perry Ann said, it has to do with the fact that they are an energy-rich country, that they're making a lot of exports to the U.S. Through their tar sands, and this is fueling their own, and we're seeing the same thing in North Dakota. So it's on a regional basis here, too. Once the Fed releases its foot from the pedal, and this is very important. We're going to see this slow down in the U.S., and I think it's going to be felt in Canada, too. We're not going to be importing as much oil, and it's going to hurt their numbers.
All right, I'll throw this one up in the air. I mean, either one of you answer it. We're running out of time here, but I want to take you back that 6.5% unemployment number. And then earlier it was suggested that it could be as much as 23. Perry Ann said the Fed steps in. Explain to me what they do for people when we get to that 6.5.
Okay, the Fed is printing $85 billion per month right now, which isn't a lot of money. And as the unemployment rate ticks down to 6.5%, it's at 7.6 right now, we're going to see the Fed printing less and less money, and that's when we can really see the slowdown. So that's kind of what we're expecting. That could happen as early as the end of this year, but probably by 2014.
Guys, we have to leave it there. Thank you. A lot of great information.
Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret.
That was host of Prime Interest Perry Ann Boring and Prime Interest producer Bob English.